Victoria Chen pushed her cleaning cart down the marble hallway of the Sterling Grand Hotel, her rubber gloves squeaking slightly against the metal handle. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting golden patterns across the expensive carpets. She wore the standard housekeeping uniform, a simple gray dress with a white apron, her long dark hair pulled back in a practical bun. To the wealthy guests passing by, she was invisible, just another member of the staff, keeping their luxury experience spotless. What none of them knew was that Victoria owned this hotel. In fact, she owned the entire Sterling Grand chain, along with 43 other properties around the world. 8 months ago, after her father Thomas Chen passed away, she inherited Chen Hospitality Group, one of the most successful hotel empires in Asia and North America. But instead of immediately stepping into the boardroom, Victoria made an unusual choice. She asked the board for 1 year to work anonymously in her own hotels, to understand the business from the ground up, to see how her employees were treated and how guests truly behaved. When they thought no one important was watching, the arrival of arrogance, the hotel lobby buzzed with activity. That Tuesday afternoon, business travelers checked in, tourists admired the crystal chandeliers, and the concierge desk handled a steady stream of requests. Victoria had just finished cleaning the executive suites on the 15th floor when her supervisor, Margaret Torres, found her in the service hallway. "I need you to handle the presidential suite on the top floor," Margaret said, looking apologetic. "Mr. Westfield just checked in early, and he's already complaining that the room is not ready. He's being difficult with everyone. You're always so calm with demanding guests." Victoria nodded, gathering fresh linens and supplies. She had learned patience in these 8 months, had discovered strength she never knew she possessed. Her privileged upbringing had not prepared her for the physical exhaustion of cleaning dozens of rooms each day, or the emotional challenge of being treated as less than human by people who thought their money made them superior. Brandon Westfield stood in the presidential suite, talking loudly on his phone when Victoria knocked and entered. He was 35, tall and handsome, in an expensive navy suit, his blonde hair styled perfectly. His whole posture radiated entitlement and impatience. Finally, he snapped, barely glancing at her. "Do you people not understand what early check-in means? I paid extra for this." "I apologize for the wait, sir," Victoria said calmly, beginning to arrange the fresh towels in the bathroom. "I'll have everything ready in just a few minutes." Disrespect unveiled, Brandon followed her around the suite, criticizing everything. The towels were not folded correctly. The bed pillows were too soft. The temperature was wrong even though he had not yet adjusted the thermostat. Victoria listened to each complaint, making the requested changes without argument. She had dealt with difficult guests before, but something about Brandon Westfield's tone went beyond mere demanding standards. There was genuine contempt in his voice when he spoke to her. "People like you," he said, watching her vacuum the bedroom, "need to understand that service is about anticipating needs. I should not have to tell you what to do. That's why you are in this position, and people like me are successful. Some individuals simply lack the intelligence and drive to be anything more than cleaners." Victoria felt her jaw tighten, but she continued working. She had learned to let such comments roll off her, to remind herself that these insults revealed more about the speaker than about her. Still, the words stung. Not because she doubted her own worth, but because she knew Brandon spoke this way to every housekeeper, every server, every person he considered beneath him. The public humiliation, the real incident, happened an hour later in the hotel lobby. Victoria was restocking the cleaning cart near the elevators when Brandon emerged with 3 business associates, all dressed in expensive suits, all carrying leather briefcases. They were discussing a major real estate deal, their voices confident and loud. As they passed, Brandon suddenly stopped. He turned to Victoria with an expression of disgust. "You?" he called out, causing several guests in the lobby to look over. "You cleaned my suite, correct?" "Yes, sir," Victoria replied quietly, aware of the attention they were attracting. "I found a hair on my pillow," Brandon announced loudly. "Do you have any idea how disgusting that is? How incompetent do you have to be to miss something so basic?" The lobby had grown quiet. Other guests watched with a mixture of curiosity and discomfort. Hotel staff members froze, unsure whether to intervene. Brandon's associates looked embarrassed, but said nothing. "I sincerely apologize, sir," Victoria said, maintaining her professional tone despite her burning cheeks. "I will personally ensure the suite is cleaned again immediately." "That's not the point," Brandon continued, stepping closer, his voice dripping with disdain. "The point is that standards have fallen so low that anyone can get a job, regardless of their capability. You are clearly not intelligent enough for even this simple work. I'm going to speak with management about having you fired. People of your caliber should not be working in a 5-star establishment." Silent strength Victoria stood perfectly still, her hands clasped in front of her, her expression calm despite the humiliation washing over her. She thought of her father, who had started Chen Hospitality Group with a single modest hotel and built it into an empire. Through hard work and treating every employee with respect, he had always said that how you treat people when you have power over them reveals your true character. Brandon was still talking, listing her supposed failures, making sure everyone in the lobby heard his complaints. His associates shifted uncomfortably. A few guests looked sympathetic toward Victoria, but no one intervened. That was how power worked, she realized. People were afraid to challenge those who seemed important. Finally, Margaret Torres arrived, summoned by the front desk staff. She apologized profusely to Brandon, assured him the situation would be handled, and gently guided Victoria away, toward the service area. In the staff room, Margaret hugged her. "I am so sorry, Victoria. That man is horrible. I wish I could have said something, but guests like him can cause so much trouble for the hotel. Are you all right?" Victoria nodded, though inside she felt shaken, not by the insults themselves, but by the casual cruelty of it all. Brandon Westfield had humiliated her publicly, had tried to take away her livelihood, had treated her as less than human, all because he could. Because he had money and power and believed that made him better than everyone else. The secret, knowledge what Brandon Westfield did not know, was that in 4 weeks, Victoria Chen would officially take her position as CEO of Chen Hospitality Group. And what he definitely did not know was that his company, Westfield Development, had submitted a proposal 3 months ago for a major partnership with Chen Hospitality Group. The proposal sat in a folder in the corporate office, waiting for the new CEO's approval. The partnership would allow Westfield Development to build luxury residential towers connected to 5 Chen Hospitality properties, a deal worth hundreds of millions of dollars. As Victoria changed out of her housekeeping uniform that evening, she made a decision. She would finish her remaining 4 weeks working anonymously as planned. She would continue to learn, to understand, to see the world from this perspective. But she would also remember everything about Brandon Westfield. His cruelty, his arrogance, his fundamental belief that some people mattered and others did not. Because very soon, the man who had publicly humiliated a hotel cleaner would walk into a boardroom and discover that the cleaner held his company's future in her hands. And then finally, he would learn the most important lesson of his life. For weeks passed like sand through an hourglass. Victoria continued her work at the Sterling Grand Hotel, cleaning rooms, scrubbing bathrooms, and changing countless sets of sheets. Each day brought new challenges and small moments of connection with her coworkers. She shared lunch breaks with Maria, a single mother from Guatemala who worked 2 jobs to support her 3 children. She laughed with James, the elderly maintenance man who told stories about working at the hotel for 30 years. She learned from Margaret, the supervisor who treated every staff member with kindness and respect. These people had become her friends. They knew her as Victoria, the quiet but hardworking cleaner who never complained and always helped others when they fell behind on their tasks. They had no idea she was the owner's daughter, the heiress who would soon control their entire employment future. This secrecy sometimes felt like a betrayal, but Victoria knew it was necessary. She needed to see the real world, unfiltered by wealth and status. Brandon Westfield had stayed at the hotel for a week before checking out. During that time, he continued to treat staff members with contempt. Victoria watched him snap at servers in the restaurant, dismiss the valet drivers as if they were invisible, and complain constantly to management about trivial matters. She also noticed that when he spoke with other wealthy guests or business associates, his demeanor changed completely. He became charming, charismatic, even generous. The difference in behavior was striking and deeply troubling. emotional farewells on her last day as a hotel cleaner. Victoria arrived early for her shift.
Hey.
She had spent the previous evening packing up her small apartment near the hotel, the modest one-bedroom space that had been her home for 8 months. Tomorrow, she would move back into her family's penthouse, would reclaim her identity, would step into the role her father had prepared her for her entire life. Margaret found her in the staff locker room, sitting quietly on the bench. The supervisor had tears in her eyes. "I cannot believe you are really leaving," Margaret said, sitting beside her. "You have been the best employee I have ever supervised. Where are you going? Is everything all right?" Victoria smiled, choosing her words carefully. "I received an opportunity in corporate management. A family connection helped me get an interview. I am grateful for everything you taught me, Margaret. You showed me what real leadership looks like." Throughout the day, coworkers stopped by to say goodbye. Maria brought homemade tamales wrapped in foil, insisting Victoria take them for her journey. James gave her a small wooden figure he had carved, a bird in flight. Even the front desk staff, who rarely interacted with housekeeping, came to wish her well. These simple gestures of friendship meant more to Victoria than any expensive gift she had ever received. At the end of her shift, Victoria walked through the hotel one final time. She ran her hand along the marble columns in the lobby, looked up at the crystal chandeliers her father had personally selected, remembered all the lessons she had learned in these halls. She was leaving as a different person than she had arrived. Stronger, wiser, and deeply aware of the humanity that existed at every level of society, the return to power the next morning. Victoria stood in front of her closet in the penthouse, selecting a tailored black suit. Her reflection showed a woman transformed. Gone was the tired cleaner in a gray uniform. In her place stood a confident executive with sharp eyes and determined expression. She wore pearl earrings that had belonged to her mother, a simple gold watch, and understated makeup that enhanced rather than masked her natural beauty. Robert Kim, her father's closest friend, and the interim chairman of Chen Hospitality Group, ticked her up at 8 o'clock. He had managed the company during her absence, keeping her secret and supporting her unconventional decision.
Ready for it.
"This?" he asked as they drove toward the corporate headquarters. "More ready than I have ever been," Victoria replied. "These 8 months taught me things I could never have learned in a classroom or a boardroom. I understand our business now, really understand it. Not just the profit margins and occupancy rates, but the people who make it all work." The Chen Hospitality Group headquarters occupied the top 12 floors of a glass tower in the financial district. Victoria walked through the lobby with Robert, her heels clicking against polished granite. Employees she passed did not recognize her. Why would they? She had been away for 8 months, and before that, she had been just the owner's daughter. Someone they had seen occasionally at company events. The board meeting, the boardroom, was impressive. With panoramic windows overlooking the city and a long table of dark wood, 12 board members waited, all dressed formally, all watching her with expressions ranging from curiosity to skepticism. They had agreed to her father's wish that she take over the company, but many questioned whether someone so young and inexperienced could handle such responsibility. Victoria took her seat at the head of the table, placing a folder in front of her. She looked at each board member, meeting their eyes with steady confidence. "Thank you all for your patience during my absence," she began. "I know some of you questioned my decision to delay taking this position. I want to explain what I learned and share my vision for Chen Hospitality Group moving forward." For the next 2 hours, Victoria presented detailed plans. She had studied every property in their portfolio, analyzed competitors' strategies, and identified opportunities for growth. But more importantly, she spoke about culture, about treating employees with respect, about creating work environments where people felt valued. She shared stories from her time working anonymously, though she did not reveal where she had worked. She talked about the dedication of housekeepers, the pride of maintenance staff, the challenges faced by single parents working multiple jobs. "Our success depends on thousands of employees who wake up every day and choose to give their best effort," Victoria said. "If we treat them as disposable, as invisible, as less important than our guests, we will fail. My father built this company on the principle that hospitality means caring for everyone who walks through our doors, including the people who work there. I intend to honor that legacy." When she finished, the room was silent. Then Robert Kim began clapping, followed by the others. Even the skeptical board members looked impressed. The proposal after the meeting, Robert walked Victoria to her new office. It was elegant, but not ostentatious, with her father's desk positioned near windows overlooking the harbor. On the desk sat a stack of folders marked urgent. "These are partnership proposals and major decisions waiting for CEO approval," Robert explained. "Some have been pending for months. This one on top is particularly significant." Victoria opened the folder. The cover page read, "Westfield Development Partnership Proposal." Her breath caught as she saw Brandon Westfield's photograph attached to the executive summary. She read through the proposal carefully. Westfield Development wanted to build luxury residential towers adjacent to 5 Chen Hospitality properties in major cities. The project would cost $800 million and take 5 years to complete. For Chen Hospitality, it represented an opportunity to expand their brand into residential real estate, creating hotel service departments for wealthy buyers. The financial projections were impressive. "Brandon Westfield has been calling every week asking about this proposal," Robert said. "His company's stock price has risen based on investor expectations that this deal will go through. He seems very confident of approval." Victoria closed the folder, her mind racing. The proposal had genuine merit, could benefit Chen Hospitality significantly, but it also represented an opportunity to teach Brandon Westfield a lesson he desperately needed to learn. "Schedule a meeting," Victoria said. "I want to hear his presentation personally. Make it for next Tuesday at 2 o'clock. And Robert, make sure Mr. Westfield understands this meeting is with the CEO. I want him prepared to impress me." Chance encounter that weekend, Victoria attended a charity gala supporting hospitality industry workers, including a scholarship fund her father had established. She wore an elegant navy gown, her hair styled in soft waves. The event was crowded with business leaders, celebrities, and philanthropists. Near the silent auction tables, a young woman approached her. She had kind features and genuine warmth in her smile. "Victoria Chen, I am Jennifer Westfield. Just wanted to say how much I admire what your father built and what you are doing with the employee wellness programs. The industry needs more leaders who care about workers' rights." Victoria studied her carefully. "Westfield? Are you related to Brandon Westfield from Westfield Development?" Jennifer's expression became pained. "He is my brother. I love him, but I am not blind to his faults. Brandon can be ruthless in business and worse in how he treats people he considers beneath him. Our father raised him that way, taught him that kindness was weakness. I keep hoping he will change, that something will happen to help him see how wrong that approach is." They talked for another 20 minutes. Jennifer shared stories of growing up with Brandon, of watching him become harder and colder as their father pushed him toward success at any cost. She spoke of her own efforts to use the family wealth for good, to create opportunities for people from disadvantaged backgrounds. The conversation gave Victoria insight into Brandon's background, but did not excuse his behavior. Many people faced difficult childhoods and family pressure without becoming cruel. Character was revealed in choices, and Brandon chose cruelty over compassion every single day. As the gala ended, Victoria thought about the upcoming meeting. She had the power to approve or reject the Westfield development proposal. She had the opportunity to impact Brandon's life as significantly as he had tried to impact hers. But what kind of leader did she want to be? Someone who sought revenge, or someone who sought justice? Someone who punished, or someone who taught? The answer would come on Tuesday. Tuesday morning arrived with clear skies and crisp autumn air. Victoria spent the early hours reviewing quarterly reports and meeting with department heads. She felt completely at ease in her role as CEO, as if she had been preparing for this moment her entire life. In truth, she had been. But the 8 months working anonymously had given her something no amount of formal education could provide: perspective, empathy, and unshakable confidence in her own worth regardless of title or status. At 1 o'clock, her assistant knocked on the office door. "Ms. Chen, Brandon Westfield and his team have arrived. They are in the conference room, preparing their presentation." Mr. Westfield seems quite confident. He mentioned something about this being a formality since the proposal is so strong. Victoria smiled slightly. Thank you, Patricia. Please offer them refreshments and let them know I will join them at 2 o'clock exactly. Not a minute earlier. She spent the next hour reviewing the Westfield development proposal one final time. The business case was solid. The financial projections were realistic. The architectural designs were impressive. If this were purely a business decision based on numbers and strategy, approval would be straightforward. But Victoria had learned that business was never purely about numbers. It was about people, relationships, trust, values. The moment of recognition, at precisely 2 o'clock. Victoria gathered her materials and walked toward the conference room. Robert Kim accompanied her, carrying additional folders with research on Westfield development. They paused outside the frosted glass doors. Are you certain about this approach? Robert asked quietly. Brandon Westfield has no idea who you are. The shock might be significant. That is exactly the point, Victoria replied. He needs to understand that every person he encounters matters. That respect should not be conditional on knowing someone's title or status. This lesson is long overdue. She opened the door and stepped inside. The conference room was elegant, with a long table, comfortable chairs, and screens for presentations. Brandon Westfield stood at the head of the table, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit, his blonde hair perfectly styled. 2 associates flanked him, Richard Chen, his financial officer, and Susan Park, his chief architect. They all looked polished, prepared, and confident. Brandon glanced up as Victoria entered, and his expression transformed in seconds. First came confusion as he tried to place her face. Then recognition dawned, and the color drained from his cheeks. His mouth opened slightly, but no words emerged. His confident posture collapsed as if someone had removed his spine. Good afternoon, Victoria said calmly, moving to her seat at the opposite end of the table. I am Victoria Chen, CEO of Chen Hospitality Group. You must be Brandon Westfield. I understand you have a partnership proposal to present. Brandon stared at her, his mind clearly racing. She could see him remembering every insult, every cruel word, every moment of contempt he had shown the hotel cleaner. His associates looked confused by his sudden change in demeanor, but remained silent. Miss Chen, Brandon finally managed, his voice hoarse. I apologize. There must be some confusion. I was expecting to meet with the CEO of Chen Hospitality Group. You are, Victoria replied, her tone professional but cool. I took over the company 4 days ago, after spending 8 months learning the business from the ground up. Shall we begin your presentation? I am very interested to hear about your vision for this partnership. The crumbling presentation Brandon attempted to compose himself, but the damage was done. His usual commanding presence had evaporated. He fumbled with his presentation remote, accidentally skipping past his opening slide. When he began speaking, his voice lacked its typical confidence. Westfield Development has been a leader in luxury residential construction for 15 years. He started, but his words came out rushed and uncertain. We believe that partnering with Chen Hospitality Group would create unprecedented value for both companies. Victoria watched him struggle, asking pointed questions that demonstrated her thorough understanding of real estate development, construction timelines, and market conditions. She was fair but demanding, giving no indication of her personal feelings. Richard and Susan tried to help, taking over portions of the presentation when Brandon faltered, but the awkwardness was palpable. The proposal itself remained strong despite Brandon's poor delivery. The financial models were sound, the market research was thorough, and the architectural designs were genuinely impressive. Victoria could see how this partnership could benefit Chen Hospitality Group while also providing significant returns for Westfield Development. After 90 minutes, the presentation concluded. Brandon's shirt collar was damp with perspiration. His associates looked concerned and confused, clearly wondering what had happened to their typically unflappable leader. Thank you for your presentation, Victoria said, standing. The proposal has merit, but I have serious concerns that go beyond financial projections and architectural designs. I need time to consider whether Chen Hospitality Group wants to enter into a long-term partnership with Westfield Development. You will have my decision by Friday. The private conversation as Robert began ushering everyone toward the door, Brandon suddenly spoke. Miss Chen, may I have a moment of your time privately? Please, it is important. Victoria considered refusing. She had no obligation to grant him any favors. But curiosity, and perhaps a small measure of compassion, made her nod. 5 minutes. When the room emptied, Brandon and Victoria stood on opposite sides of the long conference table. The city skyline stretched behind them through floor-to-ceiling windows. The silence was heavy with unspoken words and painful realizations. Brandon spoke first, his voice barely above a whisper. You were the cleaner at the Sterling Grand Hotel, the one I humiliated in the lobby. Yes, and you own that hotel. You own the entire chain. Yes. He closed his eyes, running his hand through his hair in a gesture of pure anguish. I had no idea who you were. I never imagined that you were anyone important. Victoria's eyes flashed with restrained anger. That is precisely the problem, Mr. Westfield. You did not treat me badly because you failed to recognize me. You treated me badly because you believed I was not important. Because I was a hotel cleaner, you decided I was worthless, stupid, beneath your consideration. Tell me honestly, would you have spoken to me that way if you had known my identity? No, Brandon admitted, shame coloring his face. Never. Then you have learned nothing, Victoria said, her voice sharp but controlled. Respect should not depend on someone's job title or bank account. The woman you humiliated in that lobby was the same person standing before you now. My worth did not change when I put on this suit. It was always there. Just as the worth of every housekeeper, every server, every person you have ever dismissed as unimportant has always been there. The truth revealed. Brandon sank into a chair, looking defeated. You are right. I have spent my entire life believing that success meant being better than other people. My father taught me that the world is divided into winners and losers, that showing kindness was weakness, that people respect only power and money. Your father was wrong, Victoria said, and you were wrong to follow his teachings. I met your sister Jennifer at a charity gala. She grew up in the same household, but chose compassion over cruelty. You had the same choice. What happens now? Brandon asked, looking up at her. Are you going to reject my proposal? Destroy my company? I deserve it. I know I deserve it. Victoria walked to the windows, looking out at the city. She thought about her father, who had always believed in second chances. She thought about the employees she had worked alongside, many of whom had made mistakes but deserved opportunities to grow. She thought about what kind of leader she wanted to be. Your proposal has genuine merit, she said finally. The partnership could benefit both our companies. But business partnerships require trust, shared values, and mutual respect. I need to know that if we move forward, Westfield Development will treat every worker on those construction sites with dignity. Every architect, every engineer, every laborer deserves respect regardless of their position. Brandon stood, hope flickering in his eyes. I can change. I want to change. This experience has shown me how terrible I have been. Please give me a chance to prove that I can be better.
Oh.
The decision. Victoria turned to face him. I am not going to reject your proposal immediately, but I am not approving it either. Here is what will happen. Over the next 3 months, I am going to have my team conduct a thorough investigation of Westfield Development. We will interview your employees, review your labor practices, examine how you treat contractors and subcontractors. We will look at everything. She moved closer, her voice firm. If we find that your company culture reflects the values you displayed at the Sterling Grand Hotel, this partnership will never happen. But if we see evidence of real change, of genuine respect for workers at all levels, then we can discuss moving forward. This is not about punishment, Mr. Westfield. This is about ensuring that Chen Hospitality Group only partners with companies that share our commitment to treating all people with dignity. Brandon nodded slowly, understanding the gravity of what she was offering. Thank you for this opportunity. I will not waste it. You have my word. Words are easy, Victoria said. Actions will tell the truth. You have 3 months to show me that you understand the lesson, that every person you encounter has value, that respect is not something you give based on status, but something you offer to every human being. The lesson learned over the following weeks, Brandon Westfield began a transformation. He started eating lunch with construction workers on his job sites, listening to their concerns about safety and fair wages. He instituted new policies requiring respectful treatment of all employees and contractors. He personally visited the Sterling Grand Hotel to apologize to Margaret, Maria, James, and every staff member he had treated poorly. The change was not immediate or perfect. Old habits died hard, and Brandon sometimes caught himself falling into patterns of arrogance. But each time he remembered the hotel cleaner who turned out to be a CEO, remembered the humiliation he had felt when his cruelty came back to him. And he chose differently. Victoria watched his progress through detailed reports from her investigation team. She saw genuine effort, real change, and slowly growing humility. Brandon Westfield was learning that true success was not measured by how many people you could command, but by how many people you could lift up. 3 months later, Victoria approved a modified version of the Westfield Development Partnership. The contract included unprecedented clauses about worker treatment, fair wages, and regular audits of company culture. It was not the deal Brandon had originally proposed, but it was better because it was built on a foundation of shared values rather than pure profit. At the signing ceremony, Brandon shook Victoria's hand with genuine gratitude and newfound respect. "Thank you for teaching me the most important lesson of my life. I will never forget it." Victoria smiled. "Remember this feeling the next time you encounter someone you think is unimportant. Remember that you cannot judge a person's worth by their uniform or their job title. Everyone has a story. Everyone deserves respect. That is the foundation of true leadership." As they posed for photographs, Victoria thought about her father. He had taught her that hospitality was about more than providing luxury accommodations. It was about recognizing the humanity in every person, about treating everyone with kindness, regardless of their status. She had honored his legacy not by seeking revenge, but by offering the chance for redemption and growth. The hotel cleaner had become a CEO, and in doing so, she had helped a cruel man begin the journey toward becoming a better person. That was worth more than any business deal, more valuable than any profit margin. It was the true meaning of success. The end.